exit number for the Brandon exit that the AAA operator didn't know existed. The second operator that I spoke with accepted the fact that there was a Brandon exit and said she would communicate that I was south of that to the tow truck driver that was being sent. I sat there for 15 minutes in my car while waiting for the tow truck driver, looking in the rearview mirror all the time, wondering when this tow truck was going to arrive. And finally I decided, well, I could use my time more creatively by reading my devotions for the next day. And I had beside me in the car. I said a prayer before I started, and I had said prayers while I was changing the tire that I would be hit by a truck or a car. And numerous other prayers when, after I got the tire changed, that the engine didn't start, that the Lord heard many prayers from my mouth and my heart that night. And I was running out of options because of my non-mechanical nature in terms of getting the car started. Well, when I opened my devotional book to the scriptures for that following day, Micah 7:8 was right there on top. Do not rejoice over me, my enemy. When I fall, I will arise. When I sit in darkness, the Lord will be a light to me. Instead of looking out of my rearview mirror for the tow truck, I decided to look out the windshield. And when I looked out the windshield, I could see a light on an exit sign in the distance. And I realized that that was the first Apollo Beach exit sign. Hallelujah! I knew where I was, and hopefully the tow truck driver would find me, and he did. And I wished, as I realized that I would have looked out at the windshield earlier rather than later. I could have given better directions to the tow truck driver had I done so. When the tow truck driver arrived, he backed up the Jordan lift to lift my car and came back and talked to me. He said, tell me what happened. And I said, well, I had a flat tire and my car just stopped and I can't get it started. And he said, will you just open the trunk for a second for me? And I did so. And he looked back there and there was a little switch behind the trunk hinge of the car that I never knew was there. And he flipped the switch and he said, now try it. Got in the car, turned on the ignition, the car started right up. So I learned a great deal that night about the switch that I didn't know I had in my car. But as I continued on toward Bradenton, I was pondering what I had done, looking primarily in the rearview mirror. And what a difference that made, rather than looking to the windshield. By looking in the rearview mirror, I didn't know exactly where I was. I was missing the marker that lay just up ahead. I believe that happens to us sometimes when we get locked in looking at our past. We get stuck expecting that the answer lays somewhere back there rather than up in front of us. A new day, a new time. It is also important to remember that it does no one any good to compare pastors to one another. To do so is to look in the rearview mirror instead of looking ahead to the future. Looking through that big, wonderful windshield that God has given to you, to us. Each of your pastors have been unique and gifted in ways that God had designed them. Pastors all have areas that we excel in and other areas in which we have greater difficulty. We all have feet of clay. The one to dwell upon is God. His goodness, His mercy, His love, and provision in every chapter, at every corner, at every junction. He brings us together for a time to bless each other's journey. We need to understand we need each other for that journey. God has put us together for that very reason, not to get stuck on a new status quo, but to move us into the future which God has prepared for us and designed for us. We cannot see into that future if we are looking exclusively or even predominantly in the rearview mirror. You have a mission with Christ and for Christ right now. You've not been on hold during this time waiting for a new pastor to come. You have been looking through the windshield. You set the rearview mirror down. Windshield looking has shown through what you've accomplished. Talking here about the new paint, plaster, the mortar, new bathrooms, the wonderful things that you have accomplished through God working through you and in you. It's the miracle of God in you. Paul wrote in his letter to the Corinthians these words, Christ in you, the hope of glory. That's your destiny. That's your birthright. It always has been and always will be.